Welcome investors! Today's video I want to dedicate to the war in Ukraine. I did couple videos a couple months ago about the war in Ukraine, about if we can expect the nuclear weapons being used in Ukraine. If you are interested, take a look at my previous videos. I also made a video about this, why Vladimir Putin had to invade Ukraine. Take a look at this video. I also made a video what the Ukrainians can do to kind of speed up the process of pushing out the Russians out of the Ukraine. Take a look at this video. So today I want to talk about the major difference which is between Russia and Western countries, because recently I got the comment about the Great Britain. Someone said that their politics is a laughing stock because of the changes in prime minister position. So I would like to respond quickly to this comment. So major difference between Russia and Western countries is that in Western countries we have transition of power. In Russia there is no transition of power, and at one time there is a good leadership in Western country, then another time there is a bad leadership, but overall there is a change. There is transition, there is a fresh thinking, there is a new mind coming in. In Russia for past 22 years we don't have completely any transition of power, which is causing that the person which is in power is becoming more and more isolated. This person lives more and more in the bubble. That's why Putin decided to invade Ukraine, because he was disconnected with reality. There was no one who could come in and tell him that this is a bad idea, that Ukraine is a different country than in 2014. They are well trained, well equipped, well prepared, and it's going to be probably a failure for Russia. There was no one who could come and tell something like this to Putin, because he was basically, and he is currently, living in the bubble. So this bubble is causing that he doesn't have a real look at this, what's happening on the ground. Even right now, with all the drone attacks on the civilian infrastructure, this is actually causing more and more unification of Ukrainian nation against the Russians. Instead of this, Putin could target military targets. No, but he decided to go for civilian targets. It also comes from the history of Russia/Soviet Union. If you look at the history, in 1933, 1934, Soviet Union starved to death 4.5 million Ukrainians. Why? Because Ukrainians didn't want to go along with the way how the Russians wanted to manage economy. They didn't want to give up their own small farms. They didn't want to join huge nationalized farming. They wanted to work on their own. That was one of the main reasons. They didn't go after the leadership. They went after civilian population. The same situation right now. Putin is going after civilian population in Ukraine, which is actually counterproductive. It's causing more unification of Ukrainian nation, complete elimination of any opposition within Ukraine, which could actually support Putin in the future. There will be actually no opposition in Ukraine after the war and for many years to come, because any opposition will be considered pro-Russian. So what Putin is doing right now, he's actually helping to strengthen Ukrainian nation towards one direction, towards West, towards cooperation with Western countries. which is not going to be good for Russia, because right next door they will have one of the best equipped and trained armies, NATO armies. Even if Ukraine don't join NATO, they will be trained by NATO, they will have NATO equipment. That's not what Putin wanted. Absolutely not. So coming back to the beginning, Putin is isolated because there was no transition of power. If there was transition of power, even within his circle, then we would have a different perspective, different mind, different approach. No, but we did not have it. That's why we have war in Ukraine, because of the total lack of transition of power. What's gonna happen, how this war is gonna end, nukes are gonna be used or not, I did the previously video. But if I have to look into the future, I predict that Russians are going to be pushed away from entire Donbass, from entire Kherson area, and from entire Crimea area. Why I think like this? Because wars are being won by those who have a better logistic and those who have better help, I would say, and deeper pocket. And as of right now, Ukraine, behind the Ukraine, there's entire Western military complex indirectly working to help Ukraine. So that is my prediction about what is going to happen to Ukraine and how this entire really tragic tragic war, especially for civilian population, is going to play out. Meantime, we will have a lot of talk from Kremlin about the nukes, about dirty bombs, about any different kind of possible provocations and accusation towards Ukrainians. Because you have to realize that in the interest of Putin and Kremlin is the best if this war actually extends. Because if this war ends tomorrow, then in Russia, elites are going to start looking into the damages, into the losses because of this war. They will start picking up people who are guilty, and all the routes lead to Putin. Of course, nobody is going to directly confront him and blame him for the lost war, but everybody knows right now in Russia, who is highly educated and it's watching what's going to happen, that this war is the one-man war. Putin, only one, made a decision to go to war against Ukraine. All the rest of the people surrounding him, they didn't want this war because they knew more than Putin about the Ukraine. They knew that this is a developed country, that they have a lot of Western weapons, that they have a lot of training, so they wouldn't go to war. But again, Putin, the man living in the bubble, decided to go to war. So in the best interest of Kremlin and elite surrounding Putin is to prolong this war as long as possible, because if the war ends, all their deal and holding of power can start crumbling. And they don't want to do this. They don't want to give up power, they don't want to give up money, they don't want to give up their lives. Because you have to understand that this war costed thousands of Russians their lives. And those people in power right now, on the top with Putin, are responsible for all these deaths. And if war ends, like I said, there will be a time for start looking into the reasons and decisions and those who cause the biggest damage to Russia. That's why in the interest of Kremlin is the best as possible to prolong this war as long as possible. That's why we have now Putin shooting infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, because he wants to push maybe Ukrainians to the submission, which of course is not going to happen, because Ukrainians on another side, with all the tragedy and civilian deaths, they are feeling power. They know that now is the time to get back Crimea, to get back entire Donbass, or never. Because now they have unified West behind them. So they know very well that it is now or never. And they will go all the way. They will go all the way, even with Putin shutting down 100% of the electricity in Ukraine. They're gonna be using stove, fireplaces, whatever. They will go all the way to get all their territory, because they know that this is their time, and this time in next year, 2 or 3 in the future, might never happen again. This is the best timing for them. Okay, thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. If you have any comments, drop them in this video below. I would like to hear from you. Have a great day.